I was 56 years old when my son told me he was too busy to help me move out of my own house. Let me repeat that, because I want you to understand the full weight of it. My son, the boy I raised, the man I built from scratch, told me he couldn't spare a weekend to help his father pack up 30 years of his life. "Dad, we're just swamped right now," he said over the phone, not even bothering with a video call. "You know how it is. Work's been crazy, and Jessica has that thing with her book club, and we've got dinner planned Saturday night. Can't you just hire movers or something?" I stood in my garage, surrounded by boxes I'd already started packing, holding the phone away from my ear like it might bite me. The concrete floor was cold under my feet. October wind rattled the loose panel on the garage door. I could smell motor oil and sawdust. 30 years of weekend projects, of fixing things, of being useful. "Sure," I said. "No problem." "Thanks, Dad. You're the best. We'll catch up soon, okay?" He hung up before I could respond. I set the phone down on my workbench and looked around at the space I'd carved out of nothing. Every tool hung precisely where it belonged. The pegboard I'd installed myself, the shelves I'd built, the rolling toolbox I'd spent 2 months restoring from a rusted hulk I'd found at an estate sale. My wife Sarah found me there an hour later, sitting on an overturned bucket, staring at a box half filled with wrenches. "He said no," she said. It wasn't a question. "He said they're busy." She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Sarah was 54, still sharp as the day I met her, still able to read me like a book I'd read aloud 1,000 times. "And Jessica?" "Book club." Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. It was the sound of something breaking quietly, the way ice cracks on a lake before it gives way completely. "Of course she does," Sarah said. "Did you tell him about the timeline?" "Didn't get the chance." The timeline. That was the polite way of saying that my son and his wife had been pushing me out for months. Little comments here and there about how the house was too big for just the two of us, how we should downsize, how they knew a great realtor who could get us top dollar. What they meant was, "We want this house." What they didn't say was, "And we don't want to wait for you to die to get it." I'd seen it coming for a year now, maybe longer. Thomas, my son, 29 years old, working in corporate finance, married to a woman who spent money faster than he could make it, had been dropping hints like grenades. The house was in a good neighborhood, property values were up, they could flip it or rent it out, make some real money. He never asked if I wanted to move. He just assumed I'd go along with it, the way I'd gone along with everything else in his life. "So what do we do?" Sarah asked. I looked up at her. The fluorescent light in the garage hummed overhead, casting everything in that flat, institutional glow. I could see the fine lines around her eyes, the gray in her hair that she'd stopped dyeing 2 years ago. We'd been married 32 years. She'd stood by me through everything, the layoffs, the injuries, the times when I thought I'd never work again, and she'd watched, same as me, as our son slowly transformed from the kid who used to help me change oil in this garage to a man who couldn't spare 4 hours on a Saturday. "We pack," I said. "That's it?" "That's it." But it wasn't it, and we both knew it, because as I sat there on that bucket, staring at the tools I'd collected over 3 decades, I felt something shift inside me. It was like a gear clicking into place, or a door closing with a very final sound. Thomas wanted me out of the way. He wanted me gone so he could move on with his life, so he could take what I'd built and make it his own. Fine, I'd go. But I'd take a few things with me, things he didn't even know I had, things he'd spent his entire adult life taking for granted. I stood up and grabbed an empty box from the stack by the door. "Sarah," I said, "we're going to need more boxes, a lot more boxes." She tilted her head, studying me with those dark eyes that miss nothing. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," I said slowly, "that if my son wants me out of his life, I should probably take everything that comes with me." "Everything?" "Everything." I walked over to my workbench and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a file folder, thick with papers. Bank statements, account numbers, passwords, insurance policies, contracts, every piece of administrative infrastructure that held Thomas's life together. All the things I'd been handling for him since he graduated college. Sarah came closer and looked over my shoulder at the folder. "My God," she whispered. "Does he even know?" "About half of it, maybe. The rest?" I shook my head. "He stopped asking questions years ago. Just assumed it all happened by magic." I pulled out the folder and set it on the workbench. Then I opened my phone and started scrolling through my calendar. Doctor's appointments I'd scheduled for him. Car maintenance reminders. Insurance renewal dates. Bill payment schedules. Thomas thought he was independent. Thomas thought he'd built his own life. Thomas had no idea how much of his world ran on rails I'd laid down. You're really going to do this? Sarah asked. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Did you know, I said, that 3 months ago Jessica called me at midnight because their water heater broke, and I drove over there and spent 4 hours fixing it because the emergency plumber wanted $800? Sarah nodded slowly. And 2 weeks after that, I continued, Thomas called me because his car was making a weird noise. Turned out the transmission was about to go. I found him a mechanic who did it for half the dealer price and drove him to work for a week while it was in the shop. I remember. Last month, Jessica's sister needed a reference for an apartment. Guess who she called? You. Me. And I wrote it, and I didn't mention that she'd been evicted twice before, because family is family, right? I could hear my voice getting harder, could feel the anger I'd been swallowing for months starting to rise up like bile. 6 months ago, I said, Thomas asked me to co-sign on a business loan, said it was just a formality, that his credit was good, but the bank wanted extra security. You know what I found out yesterday? Sarah waited. His credit isn't good. He's maxed out 4 credit cards I didn't know existed. He's been borrowing money to maintain appearances, to keep up with Jessica's spending, to look successful while he's drowning. And the loan? I'm on the hook for $60,000 if he defaults. Sarah's face went pale. I found the paperwork yesterday, I said. Was going through my files, making sure everything was in order for the move. There it was. My signature, my liability, my problem if it all goes south. That's why he wants you out, Sarah said quietly. He doesn't want you to know how bad it is. Oh, I think it's worse than that. I think he wants the house so he can sell it, pay off his debts, and pretend like everything's fine. He's not trying to protect me from the truth. He's trying to protect himself. I closed the file folder and looked around the garage one more time. All those tools, all that time, all those years of being the safety net, the backup plan, the person who fixed things when they broke. So yes, I said, I'm really going to do this. And what exactly is this? I smiled. It felt strange on my face, like I'd forgotten how to do it properly. I'm going to move out, I said, just like he asked. I'm going to pack up my things and go, but I'm not packing what he thinks I'm packing. Meaning? Meaning I'm taking the foundation with me, the structure, the support system, everything that holds his life together. I'm taking it all, and we're going to see how independent he really is. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took my hand. He's our son, she said. I know. This is going to hurt him. I know that too. And you're sure? I thought about the phone call, about the casual dismissal in his voice, about the way he'd said, "You're the best," like he was talking to a helpful stranger, not his father. I'm sure, I said. Sarah squeezed my hand once, then let go. She walked over to the stack of boxes and grabbed 2. Then we better get started, she said. We've got a lot to pack. We worked until midnight that night, pulling things out of drawers and cabinets, organizing documents, making lists. Not the kind of lists you make when you're moving to a smaller place. The kind of lists you make when you're dismantling something piece by piece. By the time we finished, my back ached and my hands were covered in paper cuts. But I had a plan, a real, concrete, actionable plan. And for the first time in months, I felt something other than tired. I felt awake. The next morning, I called the storage unit place downtown and rented the biggest unit they had. Then I called a moving company, not for my furniture, but for the industrial shelving and filing cabinets I was going to need. Sarah made coffee and watched me work with a strange expression on her face. Not quite approval, not quite concern. Something in between. You know, she said, most people just change their will when they're mad at their kids. I'm not mad, I said. Mad is yelling, mad is slamming doors. This isn't mad. Then what is it? I thought about that for a moment, holding my coffee mug in both hands, feeling the heat seep into my palms. Educational, I said finally. This is educational. The first thing to go was the autopay on his car insurance. I'd been paying it for 3 years, ever since he'd let his own policy lapse and gotten pulled over. He'd asked me to help him out, just until he got back on his feet. That was 36 months ago. I logged into the account and canceled the automatic payment. Left the policy active. I wasn't trying to get him arrested, but transferred it into his name only. Now it was his problem. Then the apartment. Thomas and Jessica rented a nice place in the new development across town, the kind of building with a gym nobody used and a doorman who looked through you. I'd co-signed the lease 2 years ago because Thomas's credit wasn't quite good enough on its own. 6 months ago, the rent had jumped 15%. Jessica had called me, crying, saying they couldn't afford it. Could I help? I'd said yes. I'd been covering the difference ever since. Direct deposit from my account to theirs every month. $600, like clockwork. I opened the banking app on my phone and stared at the recurring payment screen. One click would cancel it. One click would drop them back to the rent they couldn't actually afford. I clicked it. "You're really doing this," Sarah said from behind me. "I'm really doing this." "What happens when the rent comes due and they don't have enough?" "That," I said, "is an excellent question. I guess we'll find out." Next was the utilities. I wasn't paying their utilities directly, but I'd done something else. Something Thomas had long since forgotten about. When they'd moved into that apartment, the electric company had wanted a deposit, $500, because of Thomas's spotty payment history with his old place. I'd paid it, put it on my card. Thomas was supposed to pay me back. He never did, and I never asked. Now that deposit was sitting in an account with my name on it. I called the electric company and asked about it. They confirmed. Yes, I could request the deposit back anytime I wanted. It would just mean Thomas would need to put down his own deposit to keep the power on. I filled out the request form while I was on the phone. "Anything else I can help you with today?" the cheerful voice on the other end asked. "No," I said. "I think that about covers it." Sarah was making a list of her own now, sitting at the kitchen table with a legal pad, writing in her neat, precise handwriting. I looked over her shoulder. Medical appointments, car registration renewals, subscription services, insurance policies, credit card accounts where I was listed as a backup contact, emergency funds I'd set aside, tools I'd loaned out and never gotten back. "This is a lot," she said quietly. "Yeah." "How did it get like this?" That was the question, wasn't it? How did my competent, educated, grown-ass son become so dependent on me that he couldn't function without constant intervention? I sat down across from her and rubbed my eyes. I was tired. So tired. "It started small," I said. "Little things. He needed help with something, and I helped. He got in over his head, and I pulled him out. Then it happened again, and somewhere along the way, it stopped being help and started being infrastructure." "And he never noticed?" "Oh, he noticed. He just didn't care. Why would he? Everything always worked out. The bills got paid, the appointments got made, the problems got solved. From his perspective, life was just easy." Sarah tapped her pen against the paper. "You created this," she said. "I know." "You enabled him." "I know that too." "So why stop now? What changed?" I thought about that phone call again, about the casual way he'd dismissed me, about the way he'd said, "You're the best," like I was a particularly helpful app he'd just discovered. "Because," I said slowly, "I realized something. He doesn't need me anymore, or at least he thinks he doesn't. And maybe he's right. Maybe I've been holding him back. Maybe the best thing I can do for him is let him fall." "That's not why you're doing this." She was right. She was always right. "No," I admitted. "That's not why. I'm doing this because I'm angry, and I'm hurt, and I'm tired of being taken for granted. I'm doing this because my son told me he was too busy to help his father move, and that felt like a line being crossed. So this is revenge. I prefer to think of it as a learning opportunity." Sarah smiled slightly. "Semantics. Maybe. But yeah, this is revenge. And you know what? I'm not sorry about it." We worked through the morning, making lists, canceling services, transferring accounts. It was remarkable how many threads connected my life to Thomas's, how many ways I'd woven myself into his existence without either of us really noticing. By noon, I'd canceled or transferred 17 different things, 17 ways I'd been supporting him without acknowledgement or appreciation, and I was just getting started. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Thomas. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Dad, hey, listen, I wanted to apologize about yesterday. I know it came across wrong." "Did it?" "Yeah, Jessica and I talked about it, and you're right. We should help. Family is important. So we're going to clear our schedule for next Saturday. We can come over and help you pack, move boxes, whatever you need." I looked at Sarah. She was watching me carefully. "That's okay," I said. "I've got it handled." "You sure? Because we really want to help." "I'm sure. Already hired movers. It's all taken care of." There was a pause on the other end. I could almost hear the relief in his silence. "Okay, great. That's great, Dad. Thanks for understanding. Hey, while I've got you, did you get a chance to look at that thing I emailed you about? The contract renewal?" "The contract renewal. Right. Thomas had a business contract coming up that I'd helped him negotiate 2 years ago. The original company wanted to renegotiate terms, and Thomas had forwarded me the documents, asking me to take a look when I had time. I'd been planning to review them this weekend, had notes on my desk about it, had already identified 3 areas where they were trying to screw him over. Haven't had a chance yet, I lied. Been busy with the move. Oh, right, of course. Well, whenever you get to it, no rush. No rush. The contract expired in 2 weeks. If he didn't respond by then, he'd be in default and likely lose his biggest client. But that was his problem now. Sure thing, I said. I'll get to it when I can. We said goodbye and hung up. Sarah was still watching me. You're really not going to help him with that contract? Nope. He'll lose the client. Probably. That'll hurt his business. Almost certainly. She nodded slowly. Good. That surprised me. Sarah had always been the reasonable one, the voice of moderation when I got too worked up about something. Now she was actively encouraging this. You think this is a good idea? I asked. I think, she said carefully, that our son has become someone I don't like very much, and I think that's partly our fault for letting it happen, but mostly it's his fault for choosing to be that person. When did you start thinking like this? About 6 months ago. Remember when we went to their place for dinner? I did. It had been awkward. Thomas had been on his phone the whole time. Jessica had spent an hour showing us things they'd bought. New furniture, new art, new kitchenware. All of it expensive, all of it unnecessary. Jessica made a comment, Sarah continued, when you were in the bathroom. She said something about how nice it must be to be retired and have nothing to worry about. Said she couldn't imagine having that much free time. You never told me that. I didn't want to upset you, but it stuck with me because you weren't retired. You were working 40 hours a week at the warehouse, and on weekends you were working for them, fixing their car, helping them move furniture, doing their taxes. You had less free time than anyone I knew. She looked down at her hands, and she thought you were just sitting around doing nothing, because that's what Thomas told her, because that's how he sees you, as someone who's past his prime, just waiting around to be useful when called upon. The anger I'd been feeling crystallized into something harder, something colder. When did we lose him? I asked. I don't know. College, maybe. When he started meeting people with money, people whose parents bought them cars and paid for spring break trips to Europe. He was embarrassed by us, by the fact that we were working class, by the fact that you wore the same jacket for 10 years because it still worked fine. He wanted to be like them, so he pretended he was. And we enabled it. We enabled it, she agreed. We wanted him to have opportunities we didn't have. We wanted him to succeed, so we gave him everything he needed to succeed, and somewhere along the way, he started thinking he'd done it all himself. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the street was quiet. October leaves tumbling across the pavement. The mailman making his rounds. Normal life, continuing as always. So we stop, I said. We pull back everything and let him sink or swim on his own. Yes. And if he sinks? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then he sinks, she said finally. And maybe he learns something, or maybe he doesn't. But either way, it's not our problem anymore. I turned back to face her. You've changed, I said. So have you. She was right. I had changed. Or maybe I'd just finally stopped pretending I hadn't been changing all along. The rest of the afternoon, we kept working. I made a list of every business contact I'd connected Thomas with over the years. People I knew from my jobs, from the union, from 30 years of building networks and relationships. Thomas had leveraged those connections freely, never acknowledging where they came from. I sent out emails, polite, professional, brief, just letting people know that I was stepping back from certain activities, that they should no longer consider Thomas as connected to me in a business capacity, that any arrangements they'd made were now entirely between them and him. Most people wrote back with some version of, sorry to hear that, or thanks for letting me know. A few asked questions. I kept my answers vague. Family reasons, nothing serious, just time to establish some boundaries. One guy, Mike Hernandez, who ran a contracting firm, called me directly. Everything okay? He asked. This seems sudden. It's fine, Mike. Just redefining some relationships. This about that loan you co-signed for Thomas? You know about that? Of course I do. He tried to hit me up for another one 3 months ago. I told him no. He's overextended, man. Spending like he's making 3 times what he actually makes. Why didn't you tell me? Not my place. Besides, I figured you knew. You're his dad. I thanked him and hung up. Added business loans to my list of things to investigate. By 6 p.m., I'd made 37 changes to the infrastructure of Thomas's life. 37 points of support removed or transferred. 37 ways he was about to discover that his life wasn't quite as stable as he thought. And I was exhausted. Sarah ordered pizza. We ate in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. The house felt different now, like we'd already left, even though we were still sitting in our kitchen. "How long do you think it'll take?" Sarah asked eventually. "For what?" "For him to notice." I thought about it. Thomas's rent was due on the 1st of the month. The insurance payment would process next week. The apartment deposit would take a few weeks to get refunded. 2 weeks maybe, 3 at the outside. Something will come due, and he won't have the money. Or something will break, and I won't be there to fix it. And he'll call. "What will you say?" "I don't know yet." That wasn't quite true. I had ideas. I had several very specific things I wanted to say to my son when he finally realized what I'd done, but I wasn't ready to articulate them yet, even to myself. We finished the pizza and cleaned up. I went back to the garage and kept packing, real packing this time, boxing up tools and equipment. Sarah worked on the house, sorting through closets, deciding what came with us and what stayed behind. Around 10 p.m., I found something interesting in the back of my filing cabinet, a folder labeled Thomas College. I opened it. Inside were all the forms from when he'd applied for financial aid. I'd helped him fill them out, had co-signed his student loans, had provided tax information. The loans had been in his name, but I'd been listed as a co-signer, just in case. He'd graduated 7 years ago. Had he been paying his loans? I called the loan servicer. They were closed, but their automated system let me check the account status. The loans were in forbearance. I blinked at my phone, confused. Forbearance meant he'd requested temporary relief from payments due to financial hardship. It meant he'd convinced them he couldn't afford to pay, but he'd told me the loans were paid off. 3 years ago at Christmas, he'd casually mentioned that he'd made his final payment, that he was debt-free except for the apartment. He'd lied, or more accurately, he'd let me believe something that wasn't true. Because I'd never asked for details, never asked to see proof. I'd just believed him, because why wouldn't I? I went back inside and found Sarah in our bedroom, folding clothes. "His student loans aren't paid off," I said. She looked up. "What?" "He's got them in forbearance. Has for at least a year, maybe longer. He's not making payments. He's just delaying. But he said—" "I know what he said." Sarah sat down on the bed, a half-folded sweater in her hands. "How much does he owe?" I checked my phone again. $43,000. My God. We sat there for a moment, both of us processing this new information. It wasn't just that he'd lied. It was that he'd lied while simultaneously asking me to co-sign on other loans, while borrowing money for rent, while spending freely on things he couldn't afford. "He's drowning," Sarah said quietly. "Yeah. And he's been hiding it from us. From everyone, I think. He's been pretending everything's fine while the walls close in. That's why he wants the house." I nodded. "He wants to sell it, pay off his debts, reset everything. Start over with a clean slate. Using our house. Using our house." Sarah stood up and walked to the window. Our bedroom faced the backyard, where I'd built a deck 10 years ago. Thomas had helped me. He'd been 19, home from college for the summer. We'd worked side by side for 3 weeks, measuring and cutting and hammering. He'd been proud of that deck, had brought friends over to see it, had told them he'd built it. I'd let him. It had seemed harmless at the time. Let the kid have his moment. Now I wondered if that was when it started, when he began rewriting history to make himself the hero of his own story. "We have to move faster," Sarah said. "What?" She turned to face me. "He's desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. If he figures out what we're doing, he'll try to stop us. We need to move faster." She was right. I'd been planning to take my time, to let things unravel slowly. But if Thomas was already on the edge, if he was already in crisis mode, then he'd be watching for threats. And I was about to become a very big threat. "Tomorrow," I said. "Tomorrow we accelerate everything." That night, I barely slept. I kept running through scenarios in my head, trying to predict what would happen, where the weak points were, how Thomas might react. Around 3 a.m., I gave up and went to my office, turned on my computer and opened a spreadsheet, started documenting everything, every payment I'd made, every service I'd provided, every connection I'd given him, every lie he'd told me. The spreadsheet grew and grew. By the time the sun came up, I had 17 pages of documentation, hundreds of entries, years of support quantified and cataloged. Sarah found me there at 6 a.m., still typing. Come to bed, she said. I'm almost done. You've been saying that for 3 hours. I saved the file and closed the laptop. My eyes felt like sandpaper. My back ached from sitting hunched over for so long. But I had my ammunition now. I had proof. I had evidence. If Thomas wanted to call me a liar, I had documents. If he wanted to claim I was being unreasonable, I had numbers. If he wanted to say I was overreacting, I had years of one-sided support to show him. I wasn't going into this unarmed. What's the next step? Sarah asked as we walked back to the bedroom. Storage unit, I said. Everything goes into the storage unit. Documents, files, tools, equipment, everything that proves what I've done for him, everything he might need, everything that's actually mine. It all goes into storage where he can't get to it. And then? And then we wait. We wait for the first domino to fall, and when it does, when he calls me in a panic, asking why something isn't working, I paused. That's when we have the conversation. What conversation? The one where I tell him exactly what I've done, and why, and what it's going to take for me to undo it. And what will it take? I thought about that. What did I want from Thomas? An apology, an acknowledgement, a promise to change? No. None of that would mean anything. Words were cheap. Thomas was good with words. Accountability, I said finally. I want him to take responsibility for his own life. All of it. The debts, the problems, the consequences. I want him to stop pretending he's got it all figured out and admit that he's been drowning. And I want him to ask for help. Really ask, not just assume I'll always be there to catch him. And if he won't, then I let him fall. Sarah studied me for a long moment. You mean that? She said. I do. Our son could lose everything. Our son has been losing everything for years. He just convinced us to catch it all before it hit the ground. This time, I'm stepping aside. We slept for a few hours, then got up and got to work. I rented a truck. Sarah started loading boxes. By noon, we were hauling everything to the storage unit downtown. It was a big space, 10 by 20, with a rolling door and overhead lights. We filled it systematically. Tools on one side, documents and filing cabinets, furniture we actually wanted to keep, personal items that had value, but also the spare keys to Thomas's apartment, the title to his car, which was technically still in my name because his credit hadn't been good enough to transfer it, the warranties and manuals for every piece of equipment I'd bought him over the years, the backup hard drive with all his important files, which I'd been keeping safe for him, everything that might be important, everything he might need in an emergency. All of it locked away in a storage unit only Sarah and I could access. By 6 p.m., the storage unit was full and the house looked strange. Empty spaces where furniture had been. Gaps on shelves where things used to sit. The garage was the strangest. Half my tools were gone, leaving the pegboard looking like a mouth with missing teeth. He's going to notice, Sarah said, looking around. I don't care. And I didn't. Part of me wanted him to notice. Part of me wanted him to see what I'd done and realize what it meant. But mostly, I just wanted to be done with this part. The packing, the planning, the preparation. I wanted to move on to the next phase. The phase where Thomas called me, confused and angry, and I got to tell him the truth. I was almost looking forward to it. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? Monday morning, I went to work like normal, and clocked in at the warehouse at 7 a.m., spent 8 hours moving boxes and operating a forklift, clocked out at 3:30, but the whole day, I kept my phone in my pocket, volume up, waiting for it to ring. It didn't. Tuesday was the same. Work, wait, nothing. Wednesday, I started to wonder if I'd miscalculated. Maybe Thomas had more cushion than I thought. Maybe he'd been lying about his finances in the other direction, pretending to struggle when he actually had money saved. Then Thursday happened. I was on my lunch break, eating a sandwich in my car, when my phone finally rang. Thomas. Hey, I said, calm as I could manage. Dad, hey, quick question. Did you change something with the car insurance? My heart rate picked up. Here we go. Yeah, I said. Transferred it to your name. Figured you should be handling that yourself now. Silence on the other end. I could hear him breathing. When did you do that? Last week. Should have gotten an email about it. I might have missed that. So I need to set up a payment now? Yep, just log into the account and set up autopay. Easy. More silence. Okay, yeah, I can do that. Thanks for letting me know. He hung up. I stared at my phone, waiting for the callback. It came 2 minutes later. Dad, there's a problem. They're saying the payment is due tomorrow, and I need to set it up through my own bank account. Can you just pay it this month and I'll reimburse you? Can't, I said. Already called them. Policy's in your name now. Has to be your payment. But I don't have. He stopped, caught himself. I'm just a little tight this week. Payday isn't until Monday. Then set up the payment for Monday. They want it tomorrow. Then I guess you'd better figure something out. I could hear the frustration building in his voice. Dad, come on. Don't be like this. I just need... Thomas. I cut him off. You're 29 years old. You've got a good job. You can handle a car insurance payment. It's not that simple. Why not? Because... Another pause. Because things are complicated right now. What things? Just things. Work stuff. Financial stuff. It's complicated. I took a bite of my sandwich and chewed slowly. Let him sweat. Thomas, I said finally, I'm moving out of my house. I'm downsizing. I'm cutting back on a lot of things. The car insurance is one of them. It's not personal. It's just practical. But you've been paying it for years. Right. And now I'm not. Just like that? Just like that. He made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been something else. This is about me not helping you move, isn't it? No. It is. You're mad at me, so you're punishing me. I put down my sandwich, took a breath. Thomas, I'm not mad, and I'm not punishing you. I'm just stopping something that should have stopped a long time ago. You're an adult. You need to handle your own responsibilities. I do handle my own responsibilities. Do you? Yes. Then this shouldn't be a problem. More silence. Then, fine, I'll figure it out. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there in my car, hands shaking slightly. Part of me wanted to call him back, to apologize, to fix it. That was the instinct I'd had for 29 years. Thomas has a problem, Dad fixes it. But I didn't call back. I finished my sandwich and went back to work. That evening, Sarah and I were packing up the kitchen when my phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. Is this Mr. Garrett? A woman's voice, professional and cold. Speaking. This is Amanda from Riverside Apartments. I'm calling about Unit 412, leased to Thomas Garrett. We show you as the cosigner. My stomach dropped. Yes? We need to discuss the rent payment for November. It was due yesterday and we haven't received it. Yesterday, November 1st. The day Thomas was supposed to notice that his account was $600 short. I'm not sure how I can help you, I said. Thomas is responsible for the rent. Yes, but you're the cosigner, which means if he doesn't pay, you're liable. I understand. Have you contacted Thomas? We've left 3 messages. He hasn't returned our calls. Of course he hadn't. He was probably hoping this would just go away. Well, I said, I'm sure he'll get back to you, but just so we're clear, I'm not paying his rent anymore. If he doesn't pay, you'll need to follow whatever procedures you have for that situation. There was a pause. Mr. Garrett, if the rent isn't paid within 3 days, we'll have to start eviction proceedings. Then I guess Thomas better pay the rent. But you're the cosigner. I understand what a cosigner is, ma'am, and I'm telling you that I'm not paying. Thomas is a grown man with a job. He can handle his own rent. Another pause, longer this time. I'll make a note of that, but you should know that this will affect your credit score as well. That's fine. I hung up and looked at Sarah. She was standing by the sink, dish towel in hand, staring at me. He's not paying his rent, I said. I heard. They're threatening eviction. I heard that too. I set my phone down on the counter. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from nerves. It was from something else, something that felt like vindication mixed with dread. Am I doing the right thing? I asked. Sarah came over and took my hands in hers. I don't know, she said honestly. But I know that what we were doing before wasn't working. He was using us, using you, and he didn't even seem to notice. So maybe this is necessary. Maybe he needs to fall before he can learn to catch himself. And if he can't catch himself? Then at least we'll know we tried. We gave him every advantage, every opportunity, every safety net. If he still can't make it work, that's not our failure. It's his. The phone rang again. Thomas this time. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Dad. His voice was tight, stressed. Did the apartment complex call you? They did. What did you tell them? I told them you'd handle the rent. I can't handle the rent. I'm short. How short? $600. Exactly the amount I'd been covering. Interesting that he knew the exact number. Thomas, why are you short $600? Because things are tight right now, okay? I told you that. No, you told me things were complicated. That's different than being short on rent money. It's the same thing. It's really not. I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end. Could hear Jessica in the background asking questions he was ignoring. Can you just loan me the money? He asked finally. Just this month. I'll pay you back. No. Dad. No, Thomas. I'm not loaning you money. I'm not paying your rent. I'm not fixing this for you. Why are you doing this to me? I'm not doing anything to you. You're doing this to yourself. That's not fair. Isn't it? You signed a lease you couldn't afford. You've been living beyond your means. You've been lying to me about your finances. Those are choices you made, Thomas, not me. I haven't been lying. Your student loans, I said. When did you put them in forbearance? How did you? When, Thomas? 18 months ago. And when you told me they were paid off? What was that? I was going to pay them off. I had a plan. It just didn't work out. So you lied. I didn't lie. I just didn't correct you when you assumed. That's called lying, Thomas. He made a frustrated sound. Fine. Yes, I lied. I didn't want you to worry. I didn't want you to think I was failing. And the credit cards? Another pause. What about them? How many do you have maxed out? That's none of your business? I co-signed on a $60,000 business loan for you. It's absolutely my business. That loan is fine. I'm making the payments. Are you, or are you making minimum payments while the interest compounds? No answer. Thomas, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want the truth. How much debt are you in? I don't know the exact number. Ballpark. I don't. Ballpark, Thomas. He sighed. It was a sound of defeat, of surrender. About $120,000, he said quietly. Sarah's eyes went wide. She'd been listening to my end of the conversation, but hearing the actual number was different. $120,000. Between the student loans, the credit cards, the business loan, the car, and God knows what else. $120,000 in debt on a salary that probably topped out at $70,000 a year. Jesus, Thomas. I know. How did this happen? I don't know. It accumulated. Little things here and there, and then bigger things, and then Jessica wanted. He stopped. Jessica wanted what? Nothing. It doesn't matter. But it did matter. I could hear it in his voice. Jessica wanted. Jessica needed. Jessica expected. And Thomas, desperate to be the man she thought she'd married, had gone into debt trying to provide it all. Thomas, I said, you need to declare bankruptcy. What? No, no way. You're drowning. This isn't sustainable. You need professional help. I don't need bankruptcy. I just need to get through this rough patch. If you could just help me out for a few months. I'm not helping you anymore. Why not? Because helping you doesn't actually help you, Thomas. It just enables you to keep making the same mistakes. It lets you pretend everything's fine when it's not. So what am I supposed to do? Figure it out. Get a second job, cut your expenses, sell some things, move to a cheaper apartment. Do whatever you need to do to fix this yourself. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, I repeated. You did this to yourself. I'm just refusing to clean up your mess anymore. You're my father. Exactly. I'm your father, not your personal ATM, not your backup plan, not your safety net, your father. And as your father, I'm telling you, fix your own problems. I hung up. My hands were shaking harder now. My heart was pounding. I felt sick and exhilarated at the same time. Sarah was still staring at me. 120,000, she whispered. I know. How did we not see it? Because we weren't looking, because we trusted him, because we assumed that if something was really wrong, he'd tell us. I sat down at the kitchen table and put my head in my hands. Sarah, what if I'm wrong? What if he really does need help? What if he's in over his head and this pushes him under? She sat down next to me and put her hand on my shoulder. Then he learns a hard lesson, but he learns it. And maybe, just maybe, he comes out of it stronger. But if you keep catching him, if you keep preventing him from failing, he'll never learn. He'll just keep falling, and you'll keep catching until you're both so tired you can't do it anymore. I'm already tired. I know you are. We sat there for a while in silence. Outside, the sun was setting. The kitchen was getting dark. Neither of us moved to turn on the lights. Finally, Sarah spoke. What do you think he'll do? I don't know. Maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he won't. But either way, it's not my problem anymore. But it was my problem. That was the thing I couldn't shake. He was my son. His failures felt like my failures. His debt felt like my debt. Except it wasn't. Not anymore. I'd spent 29 years trying to give him a better life than I had. And somehow, in the process, I'd made him worse. I'd made him dependent and entitled and unable to handle the basic responsibilities of adulthood. And now I was trying to undo it, trying to force him to grow up, even if it meant watching him struggle, even if it meant watching him fail. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. "Thanks for nothing." I showed it to Sarah. She frowned. "Don't respond," she said. I wasn't planning to. But I wanted to. I wanted to text back 100 different things. I wanted to explain myself, to justify my actions, to make him understand why I was doing this. But I didn't, because anything I said would just be noise. Thomas wasn't ready to hear it. He was too angry, too defensive, too convinced that this was somehow my fault. So I deleted the text and put my phone away. "Come on," Sarah said. "Let's finish packing." We worked for another hour, boxing up dishes and glassware, wrapping everything carefully. The rhythmic motion was soothing. It gave me something to do with my hands, something to focus on, besides the growing sense of dread in my stomach. Around 9 p.m., we stopped for the night, ordered Chinese food, and ate it straight from the containers, sitting on the couch in our half-packed living room. "When are we actually moving?" Sarah asked. 2 weeks. Lease on the new place starts on the 15th. "That's fast." "Yeah." The new place was a small apartment across town. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen, reasonable rent. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. No mortgage, no upkeep, no lawn to mow or gutters to clean. It was supposed to feel liberating. Instead, it just felt like giving up. "We're doing the right thing," Sarah said, reading my mind. "Are we?" "Yes. This house is too big for us. We don't need it. And Thomas..." She trailed off. "Thomas what?" "Thomas doesn't deserve it. Not right now. Maybe someday when he gets his act together, but not now." I looked around the living room. The walls I'd painted. The floors I'd refinished. The windows I'd replaced after the storm in 2009. 30 years of work, of making this place a home. And now I was leaving it. Walking away. Taking nothing but memories and a storage unit full of tools. "I'm going to miss this place," I said. "Me too." We finished our food in silence. Then Sarah went to bed, and I stayed up, sitting in the dark living room, looking at the empty spaces where furniture used to be. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Thomas. "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Tomorrow, come by after work." His response was immediate. "Okay." I put my phone down and closed my eyes. Tomorrow. Tomorrow I'd have the conversation I'd been avoiding. The one where I told him everything. The one where I explained exactly what I'd done and why. Tomorrow I'd stop being passive about this. I'd stop letting things happen and start making them happen. Tomorrow I'd become the villain he was already accusing me of being. And honestly, I was looking forward to it. The weekend before we moved, I took one last trip to the storage unit to organize everything we'd packed. Sarah stayed home to handle the final details with the movers. I drove across town with my truck bed loaded with the last few boxes from the garage. The storage facility was one of those big industrial places with rows and rows of identical units. Ours was toward the back, Unit 247, large enough to hold everything we couldn't take to the apartment. I pulled up and unlocked the rolling door. The inside was packed tight, furniture we'd keep but couldn't fit yet, boxes of books and keepsakes, tools organized on industrial shelving, 30 years of accumulation condensed and cataloged. I was reorganizing a shelf of paint supplies when I heard footsteps behind me. Turned around to find Thomas standing at the entrance to the unit. He looked terrible. Hadn't shaved in days. His clothes were rumpled. There were dark circles under his eyes that suggested he wasn't sleeping any better than I was. "How did you find me?" I asked. "Followed you from the house. Been waiting for a chance to talk to you alone." "We talked on the phone. I told you not to contact me unless it was an emergency." "This is an emergency." I set down the paint can I was holding and faced him fully. "What do you want, Thomas?" "I need help." "I've heard that before." "No, you don't understand. We're getting evicted. We have 2 weeks to move out, and we don't have anywhere to go." "Then I suggest you find somewhere." "We can't afford first and last month's rent anywhere else. We're tapped out. We've got nothing left." "Then you should have thought about that before you spent money you didn't have." He stepped into the storage unit, looking around at all the organized boxes and shelves. "Is this all our stuff?" he asked. "No, it's all my stuff, and Sarah's. But these are tools from the garage. And that's the good furniture from the living room. And those boxes, he walked closer, reading labels. Those are the Christmas decorations, the photo albums, my things, Thomas. Things I'm keeping in storage until we have room for them. But I thought those were going to be mine eventually, when you passed. I almost laughed. You thought you'd inherit my tools, my furniture, after everything that's happened. I'm your son. And that means what exactly? Is that the relationship we have now? His face flushed. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about fair. Is it fair that I spent 30 years building a life for you? Is it fair that I paid your debts and fixed your problems and supported your lifestyle while you treated me like an ATM? Is it fair that you tried to commit fraud using my identity? I said I was sorry about that. Sorry doesn't fix it, Thomas. Sorry doesn't undo the damage. Sorry is just a word you say when you get caught. He looked away, jaw clenched. I could see him struggling with something, trying to find the right words, the right angle to get what he wanted. I know I screwed up, he said finally. I know I've been a terrible son, but I'm desperate here, Dad. We've got 2 weeks before we're on the street. Jessica is freaking out. We've tried everything. Banks won't give us a loan. Landlords won't rent to us without deposits we can't afford. We've got nowhere else to turn. What about Jessica's parents? They don't have money either. They're barely making it themselves. Friends? We don't really have friends, not ones who could help with something like this. Then what exactly do you expect me to do? He looked at me, and I saw it in his eyes before he even said it. The calculation, the angle, the play he'd been building up to. Let us stay in the house. I stared at him. What? The house. You're moving out next week. It'll be empty. Let us stay there, just until we get back on our feet. The house is being sold. Not for another month, at least. Maybe longer. You said yourself the market is slow right now. The house is being sold, I repeated. We've already accepted an offer. Closing is in 3 weeks. That was a lie. We hadn't accepted any offers. Hadn't even listed it yet. But Thomas didn't need to know that. His face fell. You're selling it? Already? Yes. To who? That's none of your business. It is my business. That's my childhood home. That's where I grew up. You can't just sell it without telling me. I absolutely can. It's my house, my name on the deed, my decision. But I thought... You thought what? That I'd give it to you? After everything you've done? I thought you'd at least talk to me about it before making a decision that affects the whole family. The whole family? Thomas, you haven't been part of this family in any meaningful way for years. You've been a leech, a parasite, taking and never giving back. His face went red. That's not true, isn't it? Name one time in the last 5 years that you've done something for me without expecting anything in return. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. I came to your birthday dinner last year. I paid for that dinner, and you showed up an hour late and left early because Jessica had plans. I helped you fix the fence. I paid you to help me fix the fence. $200 for 4 hours of work. That's not... He stopped, realized he couldn't win this argument. Thomas, you want to know why I'm selling the house? It's because I'm tired. I'm tired of maintaining it. I'm tired of paying for it. I'm tired of keeping up a place this size for just me and Sarah. But mostly, I'm tired of you thinking you have any claim to it. I'm your son. Of course I have a claim to it. No, you don't. You have a claim to nothing. Because everything I have, I earned, and I get to decide what happens to it. So what are we supposed to do? Figure it out. Isn't that what you wanted? To stand on your own? Well, here's your chance. He looked around the storage unit again, and I saw something shift in his expression. Calculation turned to desperation, turned to something else. Something harder. What about all this stuff? He asked. What about it? Can I have some of it? To sell? To help us get back on our feet? Absolutely not. Dad, come on. You've got so much here. You don't need all of it. Just let me take a few things. Enough to make a deposit on a new place. No. Why not? Because it's mine. You're being selfish. I laughed. Actually laughed. I'm being selfish? That's rich coming from you. You're sitting on all this stuff you don't even need while your son is about to be homeless. How is that not selfish? Thomas, do you hear yourself? You're standing here asking me to give you my things so you can sell them after you tried to steal my identity and commit fraud in my name, and you think I'm the selfish one? That's different. How? Because? He struggled with it. Because you're my father. You're supposed to help me. I did help you for 29 years. And what did it get me? A son who thinks he's entitled to everything I own and nothing I need. I don't think that. Yes, you do. You think that because I'm your father, I owe you something. My money, my time, my resources, my property. Isn't that how family works? No, Thomas. And that's not how family works. Family is reciprocal. Family is support that goes both ways. Family is love and respect and appreciation. What you're describing is parasitism. He took a step toward me, hands clenched into fists. Not threatening, not quite, but close. You're really going to let us be homeless? Your own son? You're not going to be homeless. You're just going to have to figure things out like everyone else does. Get a cheaper apartment, get a second job, cut your expenses, sell things you own instead of trying to sell things I own. We don't own anything worth selling. Then I guess you've got a problem. We stared at each other. The storage unit felt smaller suddenly, the walls closer. I could see the desperation in his eyes turning to anger. Could see him trying to figure out his next move. I could take it anyway, he said quietly. What? This stuff. I could take it. You can't be here 24 hours a day. You can't guard it forever. I felt my own hands clench. Are you threatening to rob me? I'm saying you're leaving all this valuable stuff in a storage unit where anyone could get to it. Things happen, break-ins, accidents. Thomas, if you touch anything in this unit, I will call the police. I will press charges. I will make sure you go to jail. Do you understand me? You wouldn't do that. Try me. We stood there, father and son, in a standoff that never should have happened. I could see him calculating, weighing his options, trying to decide if I was bluffing. You've changed, he said finally. No, I've just stopped pretending. Pretending what? That you're someone worth sacrificing for. That you're someone who deserves my help. That you're the son I thought I raised. That hit him. I could see it in the way he flinched, in the way his face crumpled slightly before he caught himself. I never asked to be perfect, he said. I never asked for perfect either. I just asked for decent, for grateful, for someone who could acknowledge what I'd done for him without expecting more. I am grateful. No, you're not. You're resentful. You resent that I won't keep enabling you. You resent that I'm not fixing your problems anymore. You don't want a father, Thomas. You want a bank account with emotions. That's not true. Isn't it? Then tell me. When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you asked how I was doing? When was the last time you did anything that suggested you saw me as a person instead of a resource? He didn't answer. That's what I thought, I said. I walked past him toward the door of the storage unit, stopped and turned back. Thomas, I want you to understand something. I love you. I'll always love you, but I don't like who you've become. And until you figure out how to be a better person, I don't want you in my life. Dad, go home, figure out your problems, and don't contact me unless you've actually changed something. I walked out of the storage unit and stood by my truck, waiting for him to leave. He stayed inside for a few more minutes, looking around at all the things he thought should be his. Finally, he came out, walked past me without looking at me, got in his car, and drove away. I locked up the storage unit and leaned against the door, suddenly exhausted. My phone rang. Sarah. How's it going? She asked. Thomas was just here. What? How did he? Followed me from the house. He asked if he could stay there after we move out. And I told him we're selling it. We're not selling it yet. I know, but I wanted him to think it's already happening, to take away any hope he had of getting his hands on it. What did he say? He threatened to rob the storage unit. Silence. Then, he what? Said things could happen. Break-ins, accidents. He's that desperate. My God. Yeah. We need to get security cameras for that unit. Already on it. I'm ordering them tonight. I drove home slowly, thinking about the conversation, about the way Thomas had looked at me with equal parts desperation and anger, about how far we'd fallen from the father and son who used to build things together in the garage. When I got home, Sarah was waiting on the porch. Tell me everything, she said. I did. Every word, every gesture, every threat implied or explicit. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. We lost him, she said finally. I know. Not just temporarily. We actually lost him. Maybe. Or maybe this is what needed to happen for him to find himself? That's optimistic. I'm trying. She put her arms around me. We stood there on the porch as the sun set, two people who'd done everything they could and still somehow come up short. 1 more week, she said. 1 more week and we're out of here. Fresh start. Fresh start, I agreed. But I didn't feel fresh. I felt old and tired and beaten down by a situation I'd never wanted but couldn't seem to escape. That night, I installed security cameras at the storage unit, paid extra for the monitoring service that would alert me immediately if anyone entered after hours. Then I changed all my passwords again, set up additional two-factor authentication, put fraud alerts on every account I had. I was protecting myself from my own son. The absurdity of it wasn't lost on me. Sarah found me at midnight, still on my laptop, still setting up defenses. "Come to bed," she said. "I need to finish this." "It's done. You've done everything you can. Come to bed." I closed the laptop and followed her to our bedroom. Lay down but couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about Thomas's face, about the anger and desperation, about the threat he'd made. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "You're destroying him. I hope you're proud of yourself." I deleted it without responding. Another text. "He's been crying for hours. He says you hate him." Delete. Another. "You're a terrible father." Delete. Another. "I hope someday someone treats you the way you're treating him." Delete, delete, delete. Finally, I blocked her number, then I turned off my phone and tried to sleep. Tomorrow was Sunday, one more day before the final week of packing. One more day before we close this chapter of our lives. I couldn't wait for it to be over.